NewGenGamers.com.
They were literally bleeding money. All their segments of the Atari line were failing, as we discussed, except of course the still uber popular 2600. But that's when they started releasing really bad first-party games because of the bad management and the lack of creative talent.
And everything started stagnating at that point.
Everything stagnated, and it all just kind of seized up at once. And so Kazar was ousted, and
they replaced him with a guy by the name of James Morgan, but that lasted only all of 6 months.
That was basically at the point where Warner said, we want to dump this stinker. We need a buyer. We need rid of this. We're taking way too much of a hurting here.
Which, the funny thing is, Kassar had written up that Nintendo plan before he got ousted.
Oh, what could have happened? If you want to throw that out real quick, what that is?
Yeah, Kassar had worked out a deal with Nintendo to sell the Famicom, which we'll come to later know as the NES.
In the United States.
Which makes me wonder, how would
get
that
egg wave! Okay.
Far too much excitement.
The egg wave's pretty exciting. So,
but how would that have turned out for the industry?
What could have been had Atari, rather than be stuck with this piece of crap, end up selling the NES in the United States in 83, 84.
Who knows what would have happened there? Or Atari could have just mismanaged that too.
Absolutely. So, and this is at the same time when Coleco had exclusive publishing rights for Nintendo. They ended up snagging it up. Atari didn't want these Nintendo products on their system, and Coleco swept in there and got them.
And the ColecoVision was doing well until everything fell out from under her.
Until the seizure that Atari was having brought everyone down. At that point, they sold out the company, and then all video game lines were killed at Atari.
Yeah, they pretty much when Warner sold off the company by the end, it was about the middle of '84, I believe it was, or early '84. It was around that timeline. Everything just went to hell in Christmas '83, and then they were looking for a buyer. And in comes Jack Tramiel from Commodore, and then we just get right into the 7800 right there.
A man embroiled in his own problems with the company that he had left, working for Commodore. They were another one of the early competing computer systems with the Atari 400 and 800 that we discussed, and was also, an early pivotal game company. They had a lot of good games on the system, but this guy wanted to sell computers, not video games, and he bought Atari from Warner as a computer company.
He just wanted the computer line, so at a press conference, with just a swipe of his hand, he killed the 7800, which was their planned successor, and shut down every other video game line.
He literally did that.
Yeah, he literally swiped it off the desk, and that was it.
And said, "We are not doing this. Get the hell out of here."
Yeah, that's why the Atari 7800 never made it to market on time.
So the Atari 7800 was pushed back from a 1984 release to a perpetual death to a 1986 release, when it was too little too late against the competing Nintendo system. Get 'em, Duck! We've got the duck riding the chicken, chasing the ostrich, eating the egg. Yes.
Wow. That's a lot of foul.
Only on New Gen Gamers. Thy game is over.
There are two things I want to add to this commentary real quick. The first being, as you can see, Joust and Balloon Fight for the NES have a lot in common. That's not coincidence in any way, I don't believe. But, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Joust was huge during the 80s. It was an arcade hit. Brought in a lot of those quarters, and we love quarters. So when you bring it home, might as well copy the formula. Bring it home some way, Nintendo. Also, the most bizarre thing I've ever heard in my life, and it's going to make Ray and Ron go, what? A Joust movie was being planned in 2007. Can you believe that, ladies and gentlemen?
2007?
Yes, it was being planned. Now, since then, I have no clue what has happened to
Ostrich men versus chicken men. Who
Exactly.
will win?
I actually heard that it was in the works back in the day, too.
I believe it could have been something that had been in production for years. But you know what's funny is they asked them what it was going to be like. It was going to be Mad Max meets Gladiator. So imagine a rogue futuristic setting. Imagine a gladiator tournament going on. Man versus ostrich versus chicken versus whatever else they can find in the backyard. Basically, it's the weirdest idea that they would make this in the movie, but it also makes sense, you know?
I think I've seen a movie like that. It's
It
called
could be-
Hell Comes to Frogtown.
There you go, then. But it could be an Ubu movie. Who knows? I'm not sure if they're still making it, but it was they were looking to buy rights from Midway to make more movies. So fingers crossed. Absolutely. I mean, there's been talk about a Pac-Man movie for years. Speaking of Pac-Man, I think that we're gonna move on to our next game here.
Waka Waka?
Waka Waka Woo.
Oh, Pac-Man.
The classic Pac-Man. Now, as you can see, this is a port of the arcade classic brought home for the 5200. Graphics are pretty good. Are they up to par with the arcade version? No. But at the same time...
Hell of a lot better than the 2600 version.
The one that you didn't even know if you were playing or not. Don't even get me started. I remember sitting there and just watching the screen and praying to God that the game would start. And I love Pac-Man. Even I had to look at that abomination and go, no. That's a child not even a mother could love.
Well, we covered that in our 2600 console wars, and you guys saw how bad that was.
And if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It is terrible.
Yeah, there's a head-to-head comparison right there.
But so we're looking at, as I said, Pac-Man. I want to get into something that's very interesting. As we've shown so far, the Atari 5200 didn't do very well. And also in this game, you'll notice Ray gets stuck every once in a while because of the controller. Let's hit on that controller one last time. It was the death nail in the system. Well,
we've covered it in every other game. Why the hell not?
Yeah, exactly. And it is terrible. If it would have snapped back in place, it would have made this game easier. Pac-Man needs a tight joystick. In this game, the console does not provide that. I mean, Pac-Man was a huge thing. Bring it home. But this is not bringing it home properly. The Atari eventually they were going to do a reduced cost version of the 5200. They were going to call it the Atari 5100 or the Atari 5200 Junior. We saw later when the 7200 was released. We saw later when the 7200 was released, they did a 2600 Junior version of it. This never came to fruition, and according to Wikipedia, a few 5100s were made, but production was pretty much immediately halted. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. So, what else does it say about Atari's lore?
Well, it's kind of sad, really, to see how quickly they fell and basically took the whole industry with them. Because Atari really was an innovative company when they first were founded. And then what happened was when Warner took over, that creative spirit that Nolan Bushnell, created for his company.
It's not.
It just
Nolan
eroded
Bushnell.
away.
It is the heart of the video game industry, and we look at all of these systems and all these games, and the thing that always must prevail and is necessary in this industry is that creative spirit. You can't pump these games out. You can't just come up with it. You've got to have thinkers. You've got to have people that are thinking outside the box. This is one of those outside-the-box games that no one had ever seen anything like this when it came out. But, by 1982, it wasn't as novel, and this system just failed in all these ways that their first-party stuff fell apart. They had some great arcade ports from other companies, but at this point, Atari was pretty much run dry.
Now, Pac-Man isn't just a game you play, it's a crispy corn cereal that's coming your way.
Shush, delicious! They're Pinky and Blinky and Pinky and Clyde.
We're marshmallow bits
You find inside
Delicious!
each Chunks crispy snack butts.
We're marshmallow bits that you can chomp too.
New Pac-Man, the cereal!
A delicious part of this nutritious breakfast.
Delicious!
NewGenGamers.com.